Days after the deadliest tsunami in living memory, a Coast Guard helicopter drops low over a small green island, looking for survivors. A man steps out of the treeline, draws his bow, and aims an arrow up at the machine. There is an island in the Bay of Bengal, about the size of Manhattan, that no outsider is allowed to visit. Not scientists, not missionaries, not the navy of the country that owns it. India has drawn a 5-kilometer ring around it and made crossing that line a crime. No landing, no anchoring, not even a photograph. The law is not guarding a base or a mine. It is guarding people. The island is North Sentinel, home to the Sentinelese, hunter-gatherers who have turned away nearly every visitor in recorded history, usually with arrows. We do not know what they call themselves. We do not know one word of their language. We do not know how many of them there are. For more than a century, the outside world kept knocking anyway. This is what happened every time it did, and what it finally took for the modern world to accept no for an answer. North Sentinel is small, about 60 square kilometers, and from the air it looks less like a place than a secret. Unbroken forest running to the waterline, a ribbon of white sand, and around all of it a collar of coral reef with no safe passage through. The reef is the island's first wall. For most of history, it needed no other. The people inside that wall are among the last on Earth, living essentially outside the connected world. Their ancestors are thought to descend from some of the earliest modern humans to leave Africa, moving east along the Indian Ocean coast. How long they have been alone is genuinely debated. Some researchers argue tens of thousands of years. Others are more cautious, but even the careful reading makes them one of the oldest continuous communities on the planet. They hunt, they fish, they gather what the forest gives. There is no evidence of farming and none of domesticated animals. They keep fires burning, but no outsider has ever confirmed whether they can start one from nothing or whether every flame has been carried, ember to ember, for generations. Here is how little we know. In 2011, India's census counted North Sentinel at 15 people, a figure produced by watching the shore from a distance and called a wild guess in the reporting of the day. A year later, an anthropological estimate put the population between 50 and 400. 15 or 400. When the margin of error is the census itself, the number isn't the data. The gap is. It is tempting to call the Sentinelese a people frozen in time. They are not. They are our contemporaries. They have spent those centuries adapting, deciding, raising children, mourning their dead, keeping a society alive on 60 square kilometers of forest. What they have not done is invite anyone in. And they may have a reason. Because the first time the outside world forced its way onto that beach, it took 6 people with it when it left. In the 1880s, the Andaman Islands were a British colony, and a colonial officer named Maurice Vidal Portman decided North Sentinel should be surveyed, contacted, and understood. His expedition landed. The islanders vanished into the forest. His men found and seized 6 of them, an elderly couple and 4 children, and carried them to Port Blair. The 2 adults sickened almost at once and died. The 4 children were sailed home and set on the beach with a pile of gifts. What those children told their families, nobody outside the island will ever know. But many researchers trace the wall around North Sentinel to that voyage, the visit that took 6 people and returned 4. It is a leading theory, not a settled fact. It is also hard to imagine a better reason. Nearly a century later, the world tried again, gently this time. From the late 1960s, the Indian anthropologist T.N. Pandit led expeditions that anchored off the reef year after year, leaving gifts on the sand, coconuts, bananas, pieces of iron. Sometimes the beach stayed empty. Sometimes the arrows came. Then, in the early 1990s, something shifted. Islanders waded out into the surf and took coconuts directly from the visitors' hands. For a moment it looked like a door opening. It was not. No words were exchanged, no relationship formed, and the hostility kept returning, as if the island had considered the offer and declined. The sea forced one more meeting. In 1981, a freighter called the Primrose ran aground on the reef in a storm. Her 31-man crew spent about a week trapped aboard the dead ship, watching armed men gather on the beach until a chartered helicopter lifted them off. the Sentinelese never got the crew, they got the ship. Over the years that followed, they stripped iron from the wreck and cold hammered it into arrowheads and spear points. The one thing they wanted, taken. The rest left to rust. In 1996, India made the conclusion official: no more gift drops, no more expeditions, only the policy that still stands. Eyes on, hands off, guard the waters, send no one. After 100 years of knocking, the outside world's official policy on North Sentinel Island became one word: don't. 8 years later, the ocean itself put that policy to the test, with the deadliest wave in living memory. On the 26th of December 2004, the seafloor off Sumatra tore open, and the Indian Ocean rose against a dozen coastlines. The earthquake was violent enough to tilt North Sentinel itself, lifting parts of its reef out of the sea. And nobody outside knew whether anyone in that forest was still alive. Days after the wave, an Indian Coast Guard helicopter flew out to look for survivors. This is the moment from the opening. The helicopter comes in low over the beach, rotor wash flattening the sand. The tree line stirs. A man steps out of it, alive, upright, standing on ground the ocean has just rearranged. He plants his feet, he draws his bow, and he sends an arrow up at the aircraft. The photograph went around the world as defiance. The Indian government read it as two answers. They had survived. And the question the helicopter had come to ask, "Do you need help?" had its answer. The arrow was not a mystery. It was a sentence in the clearest grammar on earth. We are here, and you are not to come closer. Ignoring that sentence has a cost. In 2006, two fishermen, Sundar Raj and Pandit Tiwari, anchored illegally off the island for crabs. In the night, their anchor failed, and their boat drifted ashore while they slept. Both men were killed. The helicopter sent for their bodies was driven off by arrows, and the bodies were never retrieved. In 2018, an American missionary named John Chow paid fishermen to carry him close, then kayaked in alone. Arrows met his first attempt. He went back. On his last attempt, he was killed, the fishermen were arrested, and his body has never been recovered because the investigators are barred from that beach by the same law he broke to reach it. Notice what those deaths are not. They are not savagery. They are a border, held against the one threat its people cannot fight. The Sentinelese likely carry no immunity to infections the rest of the world trades daily, and the one-time islanders were carried into that world, only the children came back. An arrow is the entire defense budget of a nation of perhaps 50 people. So far, it has held. And here is where this story breaks the pattern of every other episode on this channel. The usual ending is a confession. Nobody knows. There is plenty here nobody knows. The language, the names, the songs, a library of human experience that exists nowhere else. But the island's central question, the one Portman sailed to answer, the coconuts kept asking, the helicopter hovered there holding, was answered long ago, and the same way every time since. We know exactly what they want. They want to be left alone. Every other locked room in this series, someone is working to open. This room, the world agreed to leave shut, not because the key is lost, but because the people inside asked. The mystery of North Sentinel is no accident of deep time or drowned records. It is protected on purpose, by law, by a nation that decided the correct response to not knowing is to stop trying to know. It may be the strangest artifact in this series, a mystery with a guard posted on it, and the guard is us. North Sentinel will keep its knowledge the way it always has. Behind the reef, at the point of an arrow, inside a language no outsider has ever spoken. Isolation is one way knowledge stays out of the world's hands. The knowers remain, and the knowing never leaves. But knowledge has another way of disappearing. Sometimes the thing survives and the knowing dies. On the coast of Italy stands a harbour wall that Roman engineers poured into the open sea 2,000 years ago. It is still standing, while modern concrete, set in the same water, begins to fail within decades. We can see the wall, we can touch it, core it, put it under a microscope, and nobody since Rome has poured its equal, because somewhere between them and us, the formula slipped out of the world. It's called Roman concrete, and that story is next. And if tonight's mystery held you, a like helps more people find the deep past, and subscribing brings you a new story every week. I'll see you down there.